So, I watched Twilight. All of Twilight. So, I was originally going to do this whole video with these things in, but I realized I have a list, and these things are not list friendly. And two, I genuinely feel ridiculous in these because I feel like it looks stupid. So with that, oh look, they're gone through the magic of editing. Wow, I'm so impressed. So moving on. So the Twilight Saga films was adapted by Stephenie Meyer's book, also called the Twilight Saga, and boy have they made a cultural impact. And I think it's fair to say, for better or for worse, they're here to stay. And while I feel like it's common fanfare to hail the Twilight films and call them like dumb and like terrible and like terribly acted and cringy and super angsty and romanticizing unhealthy teenage romance and kind of promoting pedophilia. And so either way, I actually really enjoyed these films. Are they perfect? No. Do they have lots of problems? Yes. But they left such an impact that I felt the urge to talk about them with you guys, my 15 subscribers. Thank you very much. So yeah, so therefore on this hot August day, I shall rank all 5 of the Twilight films in hopefully the least confusing way possible by instead ranking them from best to worst, going through the occurrence of each film to make my thought process more cohesive. If you're confused, there should be a lower third below that has like cute little like ranking boxes things, and I hope I worked really hard on this like graphic or else I'm gonna look ridiculous right now. But yeah, so that'll be below, and hopefully it'll be less confusing if you continue to watch. So continue to watch. Okay, I'm done.
I'm a killer.
I don't believe that.
It's because you believe the lie. It's a camouflage. I'm the world's most dangerous predator. Everything about me invites you in. My voice, my face, even my smell. As if I would need any of that.
Before I begin, I would like to offer this little bit of informational tidbit which I found interesting. Basically, all of the Twilight films are directed by a different director except for the last 2, Breaking Dawn Part 1 and 2, which are directed by Bill Condon, if I'm correct. The first one is directed by Catherine Hardwicke, who ended up not directing any of the other films. Also, all the other directors are male. We don't have to get into that today, but it sure is a common thread in a lot of these popular blockbusters. Apparently, when it came to directing New Moon, the studios, I think it's Lionsgate, wanted her to keep it around the same budget, same time frame, which really wasn't enough to make New Moon the way that she wanted to. Also, apparently she was called hard to work with and whatnot, and ended up not coming back. Although the screenwriter Melissa Rosenberg did continue to write the screenplay for the rest of these films. So in a way, Twilight Saga makes a very interesting case study in the power a director has, and you can and there's so many different things between all of them because they're very consistent in the main vision coming across. So yeah, if you're like a film major, or you just want to learn more about what exactly a director does, I unironically recommend watching all the Twilight films. It really helps show the differences, and I think it's pretty neat. So Twilight was released in 2008, and like I said earlier, was directed by Catherine Hardwicke and written by Melissa Rosenberg. And I'm pretty sure everyone's kind of familiar with Twilight, but I'm just going to give a brief summary version of it. So it starts off with a teenage girl named Bella who's about 17, and she's a new girl in a city called Forks, and she makes friends, and then she meets Edward Cullen. And boy does she like he, even after she finds out he's a vampire. So what else happens? Baseball happens. There's an evil vampire guy who wants to kill Bella. He ends up getting killed. Edward and Bella go to prom together. In the end, that's realistically all you need to know. Go watch the movie. So this was the first time I watched Twilight in a very long time, and I enjoyed it. Genuinely enjoyed it. I thought it was charming. I thought it was like neat. I love the color grading. I know that's a hot take, but I do. Don't get me wrong, it has many problems, and I recognize that a lot of the symptoms dealing with Edward and Bella do fall under abusive, if not toxic, relationship tactics. But if I go back to the mind of myself as a teenage girl, when I wasn't nearly as aware of what an abusive relationship looks like, I can definitely see the appeal I would have with Edward. Like, at that time, also feeling very average, like no one really liked me, and then suddenly having everyone just basically surround themselves with you, and in fact, this super powerful, hot, like, man boy thing is like interested in you. Like, I can see how that could be really flattering and how it gathered such a mass audience it did. A few specific things I like, although there's a lot of cringe in their relationship just from like a interaction point of view, they do have some really cute moments. Edward and Bella have some really cute moments that I was like, okay, I get it now. Like, where I was like, this is just genuinely adorable. So I enjoyed some of their like back and forth, especially when like Bella just found out that Edward was a vampire and he was like kind of showing off a little bit or just being like a little more free with it. I thought that was nice. Another thing, like I said earlier, I love the color grading this. I love how blue it is. It really adds like the mood of the film and like the genuine tension, and kind of helps like show how rainy and drab Forks, Washington in this book / movie is, and it really helped like set the tone immediately. Another thing that really helped with the tone of this is the score. So I'm a sucker for a really good score. And my definition of really good usually just falls under something that if I hear the first 3 notes, I can automatically identify what film it's from. Also, like, I'm a sucker for piano melodies, so this score was like a drug to me. It's a quote from the film. But yeah, with all that included, I mean, right now it's the first film, so therefore it gets a #1 spot. But yeah, I'm gonna put it at #1 right now for obvious reasons. And let's move on to New Moon, shall we?
You cut your hair off? And got a tattoo? I thought you were too sick to come outside. Or pick up the phone when I call.
Go away.
So right away when I started watching New Moon, aka Jacob the movie, I noticed a few quick shifts from the first one to the second one. So while Twilight has like this blue color grading to it, it's very moody, the rest of these films no longer have that color grading and are very much more graded like a normal-ish type film blockbuster thing. And the second shift I noted is that all these films will inexplicably end with an action fight scene at the end. Because we all know action makes films better. Woo. And I kind of put these shifts on 2 things. #1, Lionsgate realizing they have a blockbuster hit and squeezing every single bit of like commercial viability it's worth. 2, I read how Stephenie Meyer originally wrote Twilight as an individual book, but then when it became popular, she ended up creating a sequel and the rest of the saga. And you could kind of tell because there seems to be a shift in like general how the plot generally works from this film to the first one and whatnot, and it leads to some of my problems I have with New Moon and going forth. So yeah, let's get started with the actual stuff. So a brief summary of New Moon, aka Jacob the movie. Edward leaves Bella because he's a danger to her. Bella gets really, really, really sad and depressed about this, like really. She ends up bonding with Jacob and becoming friends with her. She also becomes a major risk taker because every time she risks her own life. Like, she sees visions of Edward, so she wants to keep seeing Edward, so she like risks her life continually. Eventually she risks her life to a point where Alice and Edward both think she's dead. Edward's like, alright, she's dead, so I'm gonna die too. And is about to like kill himself or like expose himself so he can be killed by like vampire cancel the Vulturi. Bella goes to Italy, ditches Jacob, and like goes and saves him. There's an inexplicable fight scene at the end that does nothing. They end up together, Edward proposes, the end. So for me, this wasn't a fun movie for me compared to the first one. This one also just seemed to stretch forever. If I'm correct, it's the longest one out of the saga, and you really can feel it by like the last 30 minutes where the film really should have ended. But like I said, inexplicable fight sequence that I really don't think this film needed. Also, Bella's characterization of this starts to get like really bad. Like from the fact how like one thing I enjoyed in the first film is how like Bella, when the first narration comes on how she's willing to die for someone she loves, I assumed it was going to be Edward. And when it turned out to be her mom, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And in this film, she literally just keeps risking her life for Edward. So, like, that fun tidbit's now gone, per se. And basically, Bella just, like, spirals into this deep depression because she seems to, like, not be able to live without Edward to the point where she's, like, just continually in bed, stop interacting with people for months at this point. And gosh, is that an unhealthy relationship? It just like makes this film so full of angst to the point where it's just like too much. Like I enjoy a good angsty film. This is taking that angst to the next level, and I honestly wasn't a huge fan of it. And also at the end when Bella and Edward like end up back together, and Bella like tells him how like she was really sad because he basically said he didn't love her anymore, and Edward just kind of turns the situation and just goes,
I lied. I had to lie. You believe me so easily.
I really just feel like the unhealthiness of the relationship is so emphasized in this one based off how everyone reacts. The fact that Edward's willing to kill himself because he thinks Bella's dead, and the fact that Bella's willing to like risk her life and like low-key just keep attempting to kill herself to see Edward, it's just not good. There's like really nothing good about it. Plus, there are so many age jokes in this because Jacob's like a year younger than Bella, and we all know Edward's much older than Bella, and so there's just so many gross things about dating an older woman or dating an older man, and I don't like it. Moving on to some of the things I liked about it, one of the things I really liked about it was Jacob and Bella's friendship at first before I turned into a werewolf, because he really like helped bring her out of the depression. It was kind of really sweet to see. And then everything kind of gets worse when he becomes a werewolf and then thinks he has a claim on her, and it gets gross after that. Like for like this brief bit, you're Team Jacob, and then you end up being Team Nobody by the end. Another thing I like, there's like this one really, really brief scene when like children are going to the Volturi. Actually, it's just like a tourist group's going into the Volturi's room, and you just hear screaming and like,
This way, please. Stay together.
that's a way to establish a group of characters, and I loved it. Like it was just straight up badass. Like no other way to go about it. Also, Werewolf Jacob is really pretty. That's my third point on why it's a good movie. Seeing Taylor Lautner without a shirt on is quite enjoyable, and I will not deny myself that. Either way, I enjoyed this film like much, much less than the first one. But for sake of this, we're just gonna slide New Moon into number 2. It's probably gonna get lower, but that's where it is right now. So moving on to Eclipse.
Forget it. She may need her toes someday. And let's face it, I am hotter than you.
So Eclipse seems to be like the most commercially viable out of all of these films, because I think it's like the perfect mix to get the most people as possible, which can also be shown in like the box office records of these films, because Eclipse does gain the most amount of money. So I guess it eclipsed the others. I'm gonna keep that in there because I thought that was cool. Plot, I think, is the most balanced in these films. In this film, it's the perfect amount of like angst / romance / action. Because the general summary of the story is so like evil vampires from like the first film like creates like a newborn army, and they're all basically trying to kill Bella because Edward killed the evil vampire's lover. So there, see, we get callbacks from the first one. Blah blah blah. They train werewolves and vampires have like a partial truce to like kill all the vampires coming after them. They kill all the vampires coming after them. Bella says yes to marrying Edward. Jacob's trying really hard to like convince her otherwise, like too hard to do that, and yeah, that's about it. So one thing I like about this film is like the screenplay just kind of all wraps together and it feels like the tightest one out of all of them. Bella has just promised a Vulturi in like the past movie, and Edward, Bella and Edward have, that Bella will become a vampire. So all this film kind of just relates to that. The fact that the main enemy are newborn vampires that basically vampires that just turned, which Bella will end up becoming pretty soon. The fact that in this story we learn more about the side characters, especially like Jesper, Carlisle, and Rosalie, and with that we learn how they turned, why they turned, how they feel about being a vampire, which goes well with Bella because that is what she wants to become. The whole beef with Rosalie, how Rosalie wants Bella to stay human because she didn't have the choice to stay human. And I think that works very well. Another aspect with Bella's future is like the whole Jacob Edward discussion, because that is again a major part of this film. Will she choose to be a vampire and give up like this life, this humanness she has for Edward? Or does she continue to like live and be like a true human with like Jacob? There's no third option. She's not allowed to be alone. But it's still just very interesting how that comes into play because Edward very much represents like coldness and death and like the afterlife of that, while Jacob very much represents like hotness, not in that way, just like in like a temperature way. Trust me, there's a line about it. And life, vividness, like the type of like colorfulness you see from life. And so kind of fighting those two sides can represent her own like how she's going to deal with either becoming an immortal or staying human. So everything just kind of goes together with that. So I think in that way that's why this film really stands out. The story itself is very cohesive. Also, Jacob is the most angsty in this film. Like the introduction, like on how he gets introduced. I was feeling two things. One, I was like, wow, that is amazing. Two, I'm like, wow, that is hot. I am not Team Jacob. They are both abusive people. Bella should just be on their own, but like, I get it. So some of the things that I don't like about this film that kind of just like make my soul hurt is like Jacob gets like really like much more abusive or toxic. It's just bad. The fact that he like kisses Bella without her consent. The fact that like when he realizes that Bella's choosing Edward, he like threatens to like die in battle if Bella doesn't choose him. He just like refuses to take Bella's no for an answer. He's like convinced that like Bella doesn't know what she's talking about.
I don't feel that way for you.
I don't buy it. You feel something else for me. You just won't admit it.
And it's just very yucky and it's not good. And like honestly, that aspect really turned me off from not only like Jacob, but like the film. Also, Jacob gets weirder as these films continue. Another thing I didn't like was the score, especially in the climax when Edward's fighting vampire. It's just so basic and it hurts. And I know why it's basic is because Carter Burwell's didn't like make the score for this film. And it shows more like, and it hears. And it just makes like a lot of the action, a lot of the fun character beats of this like disappear. And it doesn't emphasize them in a way where I feel like they really could have gone for it. So with this newfound information, I, at this moment, am going to put Eclipse as the #1 film. I think in general, this story is like the best here. It's really tight in how it does it. And I'm a sucker for a story. I could care less about like visuals, to be honest. So that's the film major, but it's true. So with that in mind, Eclipse is getting my #1 spot. Okay, so moving on to Breaking Dawn Part 1. Before I begin this brief summary, warning, Dad, I love you a lot and I want you to keep a certain image of me So skip the summary to this time code, and anyone else who really wants to like not hear me get weird. Brief summary of Breaking Dawn Part 1 is Edward and Bella get married, and like so much conflict gets done by like if Edward's like thick monster cock is gonna break Bella the moment they screw. Surprise, surprise, it doesn't. But it does get her pregnant on the first go, so good job. Those little swimmies are doing well. And there's so much pro-life / abortion talk in this film, like so much. On the bright side, I would argue that Edward's actually pro-choice versus pro-life because of how much he wants Bella to not have the baby, but also he's not pro-choice because he wants to make the choice for Bella. So if there's just like a have an abortion or else group, I think Edward falls under there, at least when it comes to Bella. Surprise, surprise, Bella keeps the baby, although it's actually killing her. Because, you know, pro-life, the baby ends up being born, Bella dies from it. What else happens in this film? It's simultaneously nothing happens, but like, I guess stuff happens. Oh yeah, there's like an inexplicable fight that actually makes no sense. Bella becomes a vampire at the end. So a few things I liked about this film. Surprisingly, for a movie with such little like real plot, it doesn't drag at all. Like the pacing's still very good to me. Like I just no part where I get like super bored, especially like in comparison to New Moon. Another thing I like, that scene where Bella like gives birth genuinely like freaks me out in the best way possible, and I think it's really well done, and it just gets really like horrifying, especially if you're like someone who can't get pregnant, and I don't like it. A few things I like about this, a few other things I like about this film, like Jacob's no longer pursuing Bella to this extent, and he seems like kind of cool with their relationship in a way. So yeah, that is neat. So on to the weirder stuff. Jacob imprints on a baby. I can't like not discuss that when talking about this film. I really can't. And he's very like much like it's not a sexual thing, it's not a love, it's not like that. But considering every other example of imprinting we've seen is very much a sexual crush thing, and the fact that like it's not good. Also, CGI baby is scary. Oh wait, yeah, Carter Burwell comes back, and I miss him, and it's so obvious by how the score is. Like, we finally get my piano back, and I miss it so much. And I really also adds, it makes me like nostalgic for the first one, like hearing again creates like a nostalgia, because like, and it's good because like the marriage we see is kind of like, you know, like supposed to be like the culmination of all the relationship, and the fact that we get the score back brings you back to the beginning of the relationship, so it just kind of creates this nice nostalgia that's nice. Other than that, there's really not a lot for me to talk about with this film. This film has like left the least amount of impact, like story-wise. The entire fight scene at the end of this film could not have happened, and nothing would change. And yeah, that's realistically it. So if I had to choose, I'm gonna put this above New Moon but below Twilight. Is it set in the lower third I have yet? Good. So off to the final film.
She's gonna be around for a long time, isn't she? A very long time. I'm glad she has you. So should I start calling you Dad? No.
I'm gonna put my fangs back in for this one because Bella becomes a vampire. So Breaking Dawn Part 2. The generals, oh my gosh, I hate having these in. I really want to peek with them in. So Breaking Dawn Part 2. The summary is like Bella wakes up, become a vampire. Renesmee grows up, I guess. Vampire cousin thinks they had an immortal child. I tried to keep the fangs and I really can't. I'm sorry. It just really makes me want to puke. Where was I? Immortal child. The Cullens now, their entire group. Oh yeah, Alice and Jasper left for reasons we'll find out later. basically go on an Avenger-style mission and gather like their entire group full of like vamps with superpowers. I forgot to mention most of the vamps in this have some type of superpower. Yeah, so blah blah blah. They all gather around. There's some like cute like little like ethno vampire stuff that I kind of like. They fight with the Volturi. Alice like comes there. Is like, here, this is what's gonna happen to you. And there's like this huge epic fight sequence, and then we find out it's all a vision, and literally that entire like 20 minutes of the film is now pointless. I don't even know at this rate. Volturi leave. Bella, Edward, and Renesmee are happy. That's about it. Yeah, the end. A few things to like about this movie is the score. Obviously at this point, it's really fun. I just like it, especially like it's just so much angsty piano, and it's great. Edward and Bella kind of seem to be equals at this rate. I mean, yeah, I think they're both vampires, but like their relationship is very much more tamed down and kind of normal right now. Especially in a fight scene that didn't happen, but like is still like they work together very well, and it's just like kind of really cool to see like husband and wife like kicking ass together. So there's that. I liked a lot of the new vampires that came out for this. Rami Malek's in this film, and I love that like Eastern European like goth vampires. They're fun. It was just the entire action scene for what it was really cool, and like I remember when I first saw it, I was so surprised that like, oh my gosh, that person's dead, wow, we're getting wild here, or whatnot, so that was fun as well. Let's see, what else did I enjoy about this film? No, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Some of the things I didn't like about this film was definitely like Charlie's reduced role, especially in the first film where he had like so much like love for Bella and genuinely wanted her to do well, and in this film he kind of gets like easily tricked. His daughter has a kid and he just kind of accepts, oh look, it's only been like 6 months and now she's like a 7-year-old when she was a baby. I understand like for story reasons and like why Bella wants Charlie in her life, but this just felt like a really bad way to do it for Charlie, where he's just kind of like kicked out to like second fiddle basically. Another thing I dislike about this film is I'm trying to figure out which one of these two bothers me more, Jacob or the ending. I'm gonna say save Jacob for later. The ending, because there was like again like a very cool battle sequence that I really wish they kept as part canon, because it created a lot of stakes very quickly, where like I was fully invested because I truly did not know who would die next. And with it just being a vision, not only is to make most of this useless, it's just super anticlimactic that that's all it took, and then they're all leaving. Another thing I disliked, I have to like make the Jacob Renesmee thing last. The fact that he's just trying to convince like, yeah, we're just gonna be like brother. I'm just gonna be a brother to her, like a sibling or whatnot. And like, while that's very much gross and untrue, sure, keep that. But literally by the end of the film, when like it's revealed that she's gonna like stop aging, she's gonna be like fully adult. Hold on. Those are my notes. A fully adult by 7, and Jacob at the end of the film goes, should I start calling you dad? That is actually just gross. That is terrible, and the fact that they tried so hard to convince us otherwise, but they're just like, nah, they're gonna fuck later. It's not good. It's not good for anyone. It's grooming. It's terrible. Fuck Jacob. Fuck Jacob. Fuck Jacob. Okay, now that that's out of my system. One more thing I really liked about this film, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't cry, but like the ending, when Bella like takes away her like power so Edward can read her mind, and it's just like a montage of their entire like story. I was not there for like the 5-6 years it took to make all these films, and I just watched them all in 1 week basically, but boy did I almost cry at that. It was just like I got hit by a wave of nostalgia I didn't even feel. Like that's how nostalgic that shit was. Honestly, not gonna lie, that ending affected me more than Tony Stark's death. Comic book bros, come after me. I'm ready to fight. And so like just seeing that like really brought me back and kind of made me miss the like first movie again basically. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that it. So with that in mind, I'm gonna put Breaking Dawn I'm gonna put it above Twilight, but before Eclipse. That's where it's gonna be, yeah. With that, I am now done with my ranking, but before I end this, I am actually going to make a few changes. So I decided to rank these original rankings in the way of what I truly think is the best film. I do think Eclipse is the best one out of all of them from a story perspective and just like general like how it's made. However, I very much like Twilight a lot. I think what's missing from the next four films, the other four films, is this like small charm to it. I get it in terms of like the risks they took. And so with that in mind, I am actually going to switch Eclipse and Twilight. Also, I really like the score, so don't fuck with me with the score because I will like pull that shit down if the score ain't good. So Twilight's going to be first. And I think I'm good with the rest. Literally, I'm really tempted to bring Breaking Dawn Part 2 up because how much I love that score, but I can't like ignore the serious faux pas with the story beats, especially with that ending. So I'm gonna make this my final ranking. But yeah, thank you for listening to like me rant about these films. I want this video to be under 15 minutes, but I'm looking at my little clips and it's looking like another 24-minute or so. I tried. Sorry, I thought I saw a bee. Thank you for watching. Please tell me how you would rank the Twilight films, or what's your favorite scene. Mine is that really small, quick scene where like the tourists are walking to the Volturi because it's just badass. And thanks for watching this far. Please subscribe, like if you want to. If you've watched this far, thank you very much for supporting my content, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye.